Hey everybody, welcome to another Tactics with Tinfox. Today we're going to look at Judgment because it is Judgment Week. I've got 3 tips for you, so if you're new to Judgment or if you want to get more serious about Judgment, these will be things that you can look at while you're drafting that'll help make your picks better, help make your decks better, because you'll be building essentially the best, getting the best out of your pools. So, these 3 tips that we're going to discuss, the first is going to be collect all your data. The second is going to be know your numbers. And the third is balance, flexibility, and focus. So without further ado, we're going to hop into this draft here and try and tease out what these ideas all mean. Okay, let's take a look at collecting all your data. What this means is that you're going to gather all possible information before you make your decision. The easiest way to do this, and one of the best ways I think, is to start from the bottom and work up. So as you can see in this draft, I've started looking at the scrolls on the bottom row. I figure out what my pick would be out of that set, and then I work my way to the second row, and then finally the first row. And then that's when I make my decision based off of what I would ideally like to have in the rows below it. But collecting all the data isn't just about the scrolls on the board. It's also the stats that you're going to see on the side, and it's the list of scrolls that you've already picked. So it's important to remember not just what you see in the scrolls, but the stats, which we'll get to, and the list of scrolls and sort of how to use that. One of the most important steps to using all of this information is to know your numbers. Now this is our second point that I'm talking about, and there are a few different kinds of numbers. We have these constants that are going to happen all the time, such as you're picking 45 scrolls, and so you know when you're about to run out of scrolls or when you've still got time. Of those 45 scrolls, you're only using 30 of them, so that sort of gives you 15 free picks that don't necessarily have to follow your deck and don't have to derail you, and you don't really have to worry if, say, you don't pick something that's going to make it into your deck. The second kind of number that you're going to hold in your head while you draft are optimal numbers. Now these will be things like how many creatures you want to have in your deck, how many of a certain resource. Do you want to do a 2 resource deck, or do you want to do a mono resource deck? What your max resource costs are going to be. I've talked about this a little bit on my channel. The design building on a budget, sort of giving yourself a constraint, but these kinds of numbers are the ones that you'll have to figure out. There's nobody really has it cracked yet, but generally you probably want more than half of your deck to be creatures, so you're going to aim for at least 15 creatures. You probably want a good representation of 2 resource types, so you're looking for about 15 scrolls of 2 resources. So once you can sort of get a critical mass of 1 resource type, you can leave yourself open to other resources in that, or other scrolls in that resource, but you can also expand or look at what your second resource is going to be. The final set of numbers we're going to look at are the actual numbers. Now these are the most important numbers in that they're really what's going on. You can have your strategy, your optimal strategy, and you can know those numbers. You can know all these constants about you get 15 free picks and such, but when it comes down to it, what's going on in the draft is going to dictate what you do. And this is where we get into our third big lesson, or big tip, is you're going to have to balance focus versus flexibility. So you're going to have a plan, and then you're going to at some point focus in and drill down into that plan. But in the beginning, you have to be flexible, and you have to put yourself in a position where you can capitalize on the shift in the card pool, because things aren't going to go your way. Almost invariably, things will not go according to plan. And if they do, congrats, you don't need my help, because you got a good pool, and this isn't for when you get good pools. This is for when you're fighting tooth and nail for good scrolls, but you're trying to make a good deck out of it. So you've got to balance flexibility and focus. So let's take a look at this current draft that we're at. We can see on the left side we've got 3 different scrolls and 3 different resource types. That means we're being flexible. we used the limited information we had available to us, and now we're trying to peek ahead, and we see that that quake is going to focus us into growth ideally. But if we look at the picks that we're making previously, we definitely saw value in order, and that's why we were sort of stuck on that. This puts us in an odd position here because it runs counter to the strategy we just decided we wanted to do. When we look and see a Fury, a Thorny Guy, an Unbind, and a Ripper, that doesn't help us with our order growth strategy as much, and so it's kind of a dead pick. We still end up picking Wing Soldiers though, because we know we need creatures, and we want to get a comfortable number of creatures, so we're gonna go for the creature there. And then we get thrown a curveball when we see this Necrogeddon. So Necrogeddon shapes our picks, but we're going to make ourselves flexible still by taking a Quake here. And the reason we're doing that, and we're not just abandoning ship on growth, is that we're still early in the draft and we're still trying to focus on flexibility. So we're going to go ahead and speed this up now and get this thing rolling in the interest of time. What we see here is an interesting position. Because of that Necrogeddon, we essentially go and reevaluate our picks. We thought this middle one was a dead pick, but we now see that there could be some value in it if we decide to go Necrogeddon. Again, a weak selection for order and growth in our bottom row pick makes it so we really start to reevaluate whether we should be in growth or order altogether. What we do notice is that we have 3 order scrolls and we have 2 growth scrolls. While our 2 growth scrolls are really, really good, or one of them's really good, it's also really expensive and it's a big commitment, and it impacts our ability to be flexible later. So at this point, we assess whether energy is a viable option comparatively, because we feel like it could be there, but if we're going to take the Necrogeddon, then the Necrogeddon means that we need to start focusing on decay scrolls, and we need to abandon sort of energy and growth, and maybe just keep order and do order decay. So at this point, we assess whether we stick to growth, whether we fight into energy, but ultimately we decide to go for decay in the Ripper, and we take the Ripper and hope that maybe our decision to go into decay, currently it's a flexible thought, but as we see from our next pick again, we're just not getting essentially the stuff we need for order and growth anymore. So we're going to focus on bolstering decay as a result of that Necrogeddon. We see now we have Visara Sage, we have a Ragged Wolf, which could put us back into growth, but putting us back into growth then means that we're essentially have 2 dead picks. So if we say that bottom row we take that Ragged Wolf, then the 2 picks above that are essentially dead picks, because we still want to be in order, but we would then have to abandon either decay or energy. And we see a Kabonk down at the bottom. We feel better about our decision to stay in order. Now we focus on whether we take an interesting utility spell or a creature. We go for the creature just because it's cheaper and it has less synergies to rely on. We start to focus now on getting ourselves out of the position we're in. We know we have some free picks, because if we look, we have say if we don't go growth and we don't go energy, we have 3 picks that are dead, but then that gives us essentially 12 dead picks outside of order and decay. But we can really start to sense a shift. Energy at this point is completely out of the question. We see Wings Captain, really makes us feel like order is still the way to go. Starting to make these picks quicker because it becomes clear with that Wings Captain. Looking again at our stats, looking at the scrolls we have available, trying to make this pick. We feel like maybe our bottom row will be a dead pick if we go decay order, but we're okay with that. We look again, we see Noati, we think of some crazy shenanigans that could work, but then we have to think of our max resource cost. Think about our max resource cost that's that optimal numbers. We don't want to be 3 growth, 6 decay, and 4 order. That's way too all over the place. That doesn't fit into a conceptual framework of what we think a deck should be. So we don't go for the Noati here. We take the Eager Scryer and hope maybe we don't have to play it. But again, we look at our stats. We have essentially 4 or 5 dead picks. So that means we still have about 10 free picks left. So it's not that big of a deal. But we do focus on it like it's a pretty big deal. Looking down at our bottom row, we're kind of bummed that we see the Sister of the Fox in the plating, but there is something there for us in the Infected Gravelock. This row that shows up now, we see our wing soldier, and we're happy for that. We feel a little bit better. We almost think about the Sister of the Bear, but we decide for the Decay Scroll because we're starting to focus now. We're shifting. At this point, we're almost halfway through it. We're shifting our focus from being flexible to being focused on our strategy, and we're ignoring obviously good scrolls for the sake of getting in a resource type or a color that we want. We get a little disheartened about these 2 growth scrolls that are coming up, thinking that maybe we may have missed the boat on big creatures, but if you go back and look at some of the picks that we would have had to make if we stayed in growth, I think we would have been at a bigger disadvantage as a result of it. But ultimately, we go for the efficiency here just because it's on color and it gives us maybe the option of going energy, even though we don't have a lot of energy things to capitalize on. We see our path Draining Mist is very good, and a Rot Eater is very good. So that was another one of our dead picks that we just took. We're looking again now at the bottom. We see that there's options for us, but we're focusing less on the future because it is shaping our decision less at this point. That's actually a very interesting point, is that you're flexible until a point where you can't be flexible anymore, and so then this future information only shapes your decision so much towards the end of the picks. So we've got 10 picks left at this point. Some okay ones, some not okay ones. Happy to have the Tribesman. At this point, we're gonna focus on getting more guys. We're happy to get a Wing Shield. We're happy to get a Crossbowman. They'll synergize very well with our Captain. Brain Lice we're happy with. Kabonk we'll be fine with. And then we see probably our last pick's going to be a dead pick. Our second to last pick's a dead pick. But we're okay with that because we look at our numbers. We've got 20 Order Scrolls, 17 Decay Scrolls. We're probably in a pretty good position. We have what may not be the best deck, but I think we have a fine deck or a fair deck. So to recap, collect all your data, get all the information possible, know your numbers, make your best decision based off the constants and the optimal strategies you're going for, as well as, and most importantly, the actual data you see. And then be sure to balance flexibility and focus. Be flexible early and then focus later. That's it. I think you guys are all set. If you have any questions, shoot them at the Scroll Show and we'll get them answered. Hopefully this was informative, and we'll get back to the regular program. Thanks for listening, guys. Until next time.